Welcome to Impact in Learning, which stands for Involving More Parents and Children Together. Today's workshop will look at physical development. In this workshop, we will help parents to understand various ways to support their child's physical development, help parents to understand the importance of physical activity on their child's health, explain some of the skills children will need to help them to progress and improve their physical competence, share some of the resources and activities we use in nursery, and provide activity ideas and some basic resources for parents to use at home. Normally what would happen in a workshop is that you would come into nursery, we would give this presentation, and then you would join activities with your child. Instead, today I'm going to give this workshop and you already have the resources at home to work with your child. So what is early years physical development? We're going to be looking at movement and handling, and we're going to be looking at health and self-care. So physical growth first begins as the muscles gain strength and children gradually develop their coordination. Moving and handling looks at the gross motor skills. So we're looking at the movement of the large muscles in the body. So for example, their arms and their leg muscles. We're looking at your child's ability to move around and use various parts of their body. We're looking for them to make movements that span the entire length of their body. We're also looking at the fine motor skills. So those are the movements of the small muscles in the body, such as their hands. And then finally, we're looking at health and self-care. So that's things such as toileting, dressing, and how to be safe with tools. And when we're thinking about the gross motor and the fine motor skills, what we're looking for is for children to develop the large motor skills, the gross motor skills first, before they can go on and to develop the fine motor skills. So one of the things that parents often ask is, when will my child learn to write? And quite often parents want to look at pencil grip and looking at how they hold a pen before they start nursery. And actually, in order for your child to be able to develop that hand-to-eye coordination and that correct pencil grip, they need to first have developed all of the muscles and the strength in their shoulders and their arms before they're ready to develop the muscles in their hands and their wrists. So it's really important that you work on the gross motor skills to build the strength in the arms and in the shoulders so that they can then go on to be ready to hold a pen. And for most children, they won't have got that full strength from their shoulder all the way down to their fingertips until around about the age of 5. So if your child's complaining that their hand is tired or their arm is tired or their wrist is tired, it's because that they haven't fully built the strength yet. So a lot of the activities we're going to show you today are about building those large motor skills, those gross motor skills. And then with health and self-care, we're looking at all those independent skills and how they do everything for themselves. So with movement and handling, the statements that are currently in the early years foundation stage document are to move freely with confidence in a range of ways. So for example, slithering, shuffling, rolling, crawling, walking, running, jumping, skipping, sliding and hopping. So they can do all that with confidence. They can do it for an extended period of time, and they can also do it independently. Climbing, so we're looking for them to climb confidently, so to pull themselves up on play equipment. We're looking for them to be able to mount stairs or climbing equipment using alternative feet and walks downstairs. And we're also looking for them to take healthy risks as well, healthy risk taking. In terms of spatial awareness and control of speed, we're looking for them to be able to run skillfully and negotiate space successfully. And we're looking for them to adjust their speed or direction to avoid obstacles. So you know that quite often at the ages of 3 and 4, children might bump into things, they'll stand on your toes. If they're on a bike or a scooter, they might ride over your feet or ride into the back of their ankles. They're still developing all of that spatial awareness. So it's really important that they've got that awareness and also control of speed. And then with their balance skills, we're looking for them to squat with steadiness, to rest or play without with an object on the ground, and then also to be able to rise to their feet without using their hands, so that they can use their legs muscles and their balance to be able to push themselves back up again. We're also looking for them to be able to stand momentarily on one foot, and that might be holding their foot up and standing still, or it might be hopping on one foot. And again, those balance skills are quite tricky at this age. We're looking for them to use large equipment to enhance their gross motor skills. So can they kick a large ball? Have they got control with that? Can they catch a ball and throw and catch? And is that with control to and from a friend? And then in terms of using small equipment, can they draw lines and circles using those gross motor movements? Can they use one-handed tools and equipment? So those lines and circles don't have to be small on the floor because we're talking about gross motor movements. So we're talking about those big movements. So that could be using the paintbrush and water outside to draw lots of circles and lines, and painting other things with a paintbrush. It's also about using one-handed tools and equipment. So that might be scissors, it might be paintbrush, it might be using things outside, it might be using a hammer at a wood workbench. And then health and self-care. So health and self-care looks at the following things, and most of these statements will happen quite naturally at home. So we're looking for the ability for children to know when they're hungry, or tired, when they need to rest and when they want to play, and for them to be able to tell you that in whatever way they communicate. We're also looking for them to observe the effect of activity on their body. We're looking for them to use tools and equipment safely, that they've got bowel and bladder control, that they can wash and dry their hands independently, that they're becoming independent with their dressing. When we look at the ones in green, those are the ones that children quite naturally will often happen at home and into schools, and with your support that they're going to go on to do it independently. For the one in red about observing the effect of activity on their bodies, that's something that often doesn't happen naturally. So for that one, we teach it through PE. So we're looking for the children to be able to begin to recognize and talk about what happens to what their heart rate is like before exercise, what their breathing rate is like, what their body temperature feels like. And as they go through their PE lessons, we talk about the heart rate getting faster, we talk about their breathing getting faster, and we talk about the fact that their heart has increased because it's trying to pump the body with oxygen around the body much faster. We also talk about the fact that their body is getting hot because they're doing exercise, and that exercise is having an impact on their body. And then when we do cool down session in PE, we talk about how everything slows back down again as the body goes back to its normal kind of state once it's done the exercise. So important news, we're constantly hearing about obesity levels in children, and it's really important that we keep an eye on this in terms of the types of food that our children eat, but also the level of exercise that our children are getting, because we know that obesity levels are continually rising in children and from a very young age. So the Local Government Association, which represents 370 councils in England and Wales, has shown that children are rapidly gaining weight as they go to school, through school. And currently 1 in 3 children are leaving primary school obese, which is then potentially going to have an impact on into teenage and then into adult life. So how much exercise should your child be having at the ages of 3 to 4? So we're looking for them to be physically active for 3 hours. That's not necessarily 3 hours in one go, but it's 3 hours over the day. Within that, 1 hour needs to be rigorous exercise where a child should be experiencing the feeling of being out of breath. Again, it doesn't need to be 1 hour all in one go. But if you think about when they're at school and at nursery, when they're out on the playground, when they're riding the bike, when they're climbing the climbing frame, or if you take them to park or the playground, how much of that time are they out of breath? If you think about particularly in lockdown, with everything being closed, it's been much more difficult for children to be physically active, but that's what they need every day. The Change for Life website. So this is an NHS website that has a variety of tools and suggestions to support your child's healthy eating. It's also got lots of fun and physical activity ideas. It's got some healthy snack swaps, so you can look at things that your child might eat, snacks, cereal, and you can see some healthy suggestions that are going to lower the sugar and salt content of those snacks for your children. You can also regularly check your child's body mass index if you wish to do that. And on the school newsletter, as we come through the next 2 terms, we're going to suggest activities from the Change for Life website every week. So just some little activities that you might like to do at home with your family. And here's the website for you. So it's www.changeforlife.co.uk, and it could really make a difference. You just make small changes that are going to have an impact on your child's life and your family's life as you go through the next few years. So remember, physical development is fun for children, and physical development is important for children. And now it's time for your children to join us for the activities. So we sent home with each of your children a bag of activities, and in there is a copy of this presentation. There's also things like a balloon, a ball, a skipping rope, a paintbrush, there's some bubble wrap, there's a piece of material, there's a bean bag, and there is some animal pictures. Alongside all of those is activity sheets with lots of ideas for how you can use all of the different activities. So for example, when we're thinking about throwing and catching, one of the first objects that you can use is the balloon, because it's much easier to throw and catch with the balloon than it is for the ball. We're looking for children to have good control as they throw and catch, to be throwing in the right direction, at the right area, and for that other person to catch for them. You also can look at throwing and catching with the beanbag, and one of the suggestions is that you have some buckets or containers, and children can throw the bean bags into the right bucket or container and keep moving back a little bit further so you're throwing from a longer distance. When we're looking at the paintbrush, we can look at that for developing their mark making skills and those gross motor skills. So have a bucket of water, have a paintbrush, encourage them to draw paint lines and circles on the floor, could be like you've got on the outside of your wall, on your bricks, because circles and lines are all things that children will eventually use to begin to write. And so if we start off big and then we get smaller, so encourage them to use the paintbrush, and by doing that they're going to be using all those lovely shoulder and arm muscles. When we look at the bubble wrap, they can look at popping it with different parts of their body. Automatically they start with their fingers, but what happens when they use their feet to jump on it or stamp on it? They roll on it, they sit on it, they scrunch it with their fingers, all different body parts that they can use. The material you can use for dancing with different pieces of music. You could also use it for hiding objects. You could also use it for moving it around in different ways. Then we also have a skipping rope. So with the skipping rope, you can use it for skipping, but you can also use it along the floor to use it as a balance. Can they walk along the skipping rope? Can they jump from one side to the other side? And then we have the animal pictures. So the animal pictures are to encourage children to move in different ways, to move like the animals. So some of them might be quite light, fairy steps, or fluttering around like a butterfly. And then we have other things which might be the elephant, where you're doing big, much bigger movements, stomping around with your feet. With each of the activity sheets, there's lots of different suggestions for ways that you can use the resources. And we really hope that you have fun with using all of these activities with your children. And these resources are now yours to keep at home for the future. If you have any questions, then please feel free to contact us so that you can have a chat with your child's key worker about how to further develop your child's physical development. And we will also put lots of activity ideas on the newsletter over the next few weeks with further ways on how to use the resources. We hope you had fun, and we hope you've learned lots of things from this presentation. Thank you.